Hey, hey everybody. Hey,
Hi.
hey, how are you? It's so great to see
Oh,
you.
okay. Have globe eyes.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sitting under my AC. I feel like I'm yelling. Um.
No, you're not.
Okay. Good. I
It's
don't want to
good.
yell. Can you hear the AC running?
Oh yeah, now I can now that you've said it.
Oh.
I didn't hear it before, but it's hot.
Is it very
So
loud?
no, it's fine.
Okay. How are
It's
you?
fine. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm hanging in here. I'm hanging in
Yeah.
here. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing this.
No, well, thank you for agreeing to do it. A 20-year anniversary is something not to be missed.
I can't believe it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. 20
So,
years went like that.
absolutely. But I mean, you've written so many fantastic stories.
Thank you.
It's just amazing. And so many people love you and love your work. So, just to start off, let's just talk about that. How do you feel like your writing has changed since Sugar 20 years ago up until now?
Um, how has it changed? I think that all right, so I have a really good friend who's also a writer, and we always talk about, literature and the craft. And
Hmm.
um, last year, when I started thinking about the 20th anniversary, I said to her, I said, I've been, flipping through the book and I'm reading it. And there are parts where I just cringe. And I
No.
think I think I'm going to edit out some stuff. And she's like, don't you have to leave it the way it is? Certainly, I know that I'm a better writer
Hmm.
now
Okay.
than, what I was 20 years ago. Um, what have I learned? I love like clean sentences. I
Hmm.
love beautiful language, and I could see in my early works how I kind of like really did overwrite. But now I just want it clean as a bone, clean
Well,
and
I
beautiful.
have to disagree. Look, I this weekend I took to a second reading of Sugar, and I was just like, oh my God, this book is so good. I had forgotten things in the book, and it's
Mhm.
just so, I mean, I just love the lively writing and how real these characters feel.
Yeah,
It's just so fantastic. I don't know who hasn't read this book yet, but y'all needs to get on it because it's so moving, and putting those two very different women together because they are really different is just
yes.
gold. This idea, it's just fantastic, I think.
Thank
um
you.
yeah. Well, I mean, your last book
Praise
was
song.
Praise Song for the Butterflies, and that was moving, very, very moving. And so of course was the Book of Harlan. It was as well very moving, a different type of book, but very moving, and just a wonderful read. I mean, it's a big book, but I can remember reading it so fast.
Yeah,
Just I
short
was in,
chapters.
yeah, I was
Very short.
engrossed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so engrossed. So
It is the Book of Harlan is one of my favorites. And you're not supposed to have a favorite, but
oh,
it
okay.
really is. It is one of my favorite books because a lot of my stories, they start brewing years before
Okay.
I sit down and physically start writing. So I have
Okay.
been thinking about that book for a very long
Okay.
time. And when
Right.
the opportunity came for me to actually sit down and dedicate myself, I had so much information that
Yeah.
I wanted to put in that book.
Yeah.
A lot of it didn't make it because then it
Yeah.
would have just been, at
Yeah.
home. But I love that story. And I love what I discovered writing that story. And that's what that's what is really precious to me, that I'm finding out all these things through my research, and I want to share it all about. Did you know? Did you know? Because I didn't know. Yeah.
Was that the same way Sugar came about? Was it the story, or was it the character of Sugar that came first?
The character.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So,
the character. Sugar actually started out as a poem, and then she grew into a short story.
okay.
And for a while, I was submitting the short story to different publications, and I received rejection letter after rejection letter. And I picked up a book one day, like a how-to book for novelist writers. And in one of the chapters, it explained that it was really difficult for unknown writers, because now at this point I have a collection of stories, short stories.
Okay.
It was really difficult for unknown writers book deal for a collection of short stories.
Okay.
So the writer suggested that you take one story, build that into a novel.
Yeah.
And so I had like these short stories, and I spread them all out on my living room floor, and I waited for one of the stories to speak to me. And Sugar was like, me, please.
Yeah, I can imagine she was me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, another thing I wanted to ask you about is the characters' names, because you got some really interesting names for and how do you come up with your names? Is it just like you like one name and you put them together, or is it people that you know? How does that work?
Sometimes, I do a lot of genealogy research.
Okay.
So I'm always in census records, insurance records, stuff like that. And so names pop up. I'm like, that's a really interesting name. Sometimes I'll start with a name for a character, and halfway through it doesn't stick. The character's like, this is not my name.
Okay. Yeah.
So
okay.
Sugar, immediately it was Sugar.
Oh, wow.
Immediately it was Sugar.
Okay. Now, there's another question I had as well, reading it now that I've read it the second time, is why Arkansas? Because the thing I like about this book is that I like how it is specifically centered on the Black community in this small town, Bigelow, Arkansas. It feels very hermetic, and I like that kind of feeling to it. Why did you pick Arkansas?
Arkansas picked me.
Oh.
I've never been to Arkansas. Even 20 years later. I mean, back in my mind, like 2015, in my head, I said, I'm going to have this huge 20th anniversary to Bigelow, Arkansas, and have, celebrate this book. Obviously, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I thought that I had created Bigelow, Arkansas.
Oh yeah, no, it really is a place. I Googled it because I wasn't sure.
So I wrote this book before the internet was a thing, before Google was a thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I didn't have access to research stuff like that. And it's just popped into my head, Bigelow, Arkansas.
Okay.
About 3 years after the book was published, I received a letter from a reader. And she was like, I live in Bigelow, Arkansas. She's like, the town is mostly white.
Yeah, that's what they don't do.
Very poor.
Yeah.
She said, why did you pick Bigelow? And I told her what I'm telling you now, that Bigelow picked me. What I did discover a few years ago was that, again, through family research, is that my double great-grandfather, when he was emancipated, he went with his former enslaver to Texarkana.
Okay.
Texarkana, it sits on the border of Texas.
The border between.
And that's not Texas and Arkansas.
Yeah.
And the town is only, maybe it's an hour and a half away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
so in my mind, I'm just like, oh, that's why the story was set there.
That's amazing. Because, yeah, that's because it's true that it's a Southern story. So we always expect it's going to be Mississippi or Louisiana, which are really typical places where these Southern tales are written. And when I saw Arkansas, I thought, God, I have to ask her why Arkansas,
Yeah,
because this is not what we would normally
it's not
expect.
typical. Mm-mm.
Um, okay, I wanted to ask you as well. The character of Sugar, did you, when you started to write this story, were you writing it with the idea that you were going to try to somehow, um, I don't know if redeem her is the right word, but somehow to make her re like recuperate her lost innocence or something? Were you writing it in for that, or were you just writing it?
So there are writers who sit down and outline their stories,
Mhm.
plot out their stories.
Mm.
That's not my process.
Okay.
The character comes to me and I just follow whatever it is I see in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
And one
Okay.
by one, new characters come up, new scenarios come up, and I don't write in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
what you read when you get the uh,
Mm.
final book, right? Is, chapter 1 through chapter 25.
Yeah.
That's not how it was written. It might
Yeah.
have been chapter 1 and then chapter 6, and just whatever
Mhm.
I wake up on that day and I want to write, that's what I write, and then I
That's what
piece
you're
it
right.
together. And I am learning as the story is coming together. I'm just like, oh, that's so cool that happened, or I never liked him, so I'm glad that he's dead. But
Mhm.
I don't plot it out. So I had hopes for her,
Mhm.
right? But I don't force
Yeah, you
my
weren't writing it.
desires and
Mhm.
aspirations onto my characters.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting to know because I was going to ask you if you knew how it was going to end or it just ended because that's how you wrote it.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
There's another thing is these two women together, um how did you perceive putting Pearl and Sugar together as two women that needed to find something that they didn't have. So for example, Pearl was trying to find her womanhood somehow, that she had just left it all on the, next to her baby that she had to bury over a tragic murder. She
Right.
she buried her womanhood in the grave, literally, with her daughter. And we have Sugar, who has pretty much been abandoned, by her family, literally
Mm-hmm.
abandoned. So
Right.
how did you feel like putting those two together with those two problems that they would how did you perceive them re-finding these things that they had lost?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't.
I
Okay.
did not.
All
Um,
right.
this is it's like really, really simple ideas for me.
Mm-hmm.
Opposites attract.
Mm-hmm.
One.
True.
I pull quite heavily from stories that I've been witness to and exposed to growing
Okay.
up. I
Yeah.
come from a family of storytellers. I think Black people, period, are storytellers, right?
Yeah.
So these generational stories that I've been hearing and understanding for as long as I have, and and Sugar and Pearl are really composites of women that I have become aware of through family stories
Okay.
and women that raised me. And coming up, and I don't think it's so much so now, right? But when I came up, children were to be seen and not
Yeah.
heard,
Not
right?
heard.
But
Yeah.
the reason why I was allowed to stay in the room is because I didn't ask any questions. I was so quiet that they
Yeah.
forgot that I was there. But
Yeah.
I was there absorbing,
Listening.
yes, absorbing all of these things. And then as I got older, the other children, they weren't really interested in those stories. But I was, you know, got to a point where I was able to ask, and the adults would actually interact with adults. Can you tell me about X, Y, and Z? And so, again, it's just like I'm kind of floundering a little bit because the published book is 20 years old, but the story is 30.
Oh, okay.
30 odd
So you
years
started
old.
working on this way before.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And you know, it took me, when I finally started submitting it, like seriously submitting it, it took me a decade to get it published.
Wow.
Yes. I have like 70s. That's what she say. I kept 76 rejection letters.
Jesus.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. With that, I was going to ask you, when did you actually first start writing stories? Was this something from your childhood, or did it come later on? Or
no, I started writing at age. Well, I was writing, you know, 6, 7. You write your little stories, but at the age of 9, I knew that writing was what I wanted to do, and I told my mother I want to be a writer when I grow up. Even though I didn't have any examples.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't know. I mean, I knew like Langston Hughes. I'd heard Richard Wright, a few, but I hadn't read them. But all of the stories all the books that I was reading were about white people, written by white people. And so me making this statement that I wanted to be a writer was such a massive statement, because I didn't have anyone to look up to. I didn't have an example to look up to.
Yeah.
So, but I knew that's what I went. Now, I strayed. I strayed here and there, but it was always embedded in my spirit that this is what I wanted to do.
I was going to ask you, do you remember the first novel or short story that you read where you felt like you were represented?
The Color Purple.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was 17 years old. I was 17 years old. That was the first book I read by a Black person about Black people.
Yeah.
And I had just graduated from high school.
Okay.
And I came home and the book was in the house. And it was different from all the other books that were in the house, right?
Yeah.
So, people pass around books, and someone had
absolutely
my mother. And my mother read it, and it was there on the bookshelf, and I picked it up and I read it in one sitting, and it changed my entire life. In fact, I'm working on it's like a memoir of a book about The Color Purple.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be out later this year, early next year.
Wow.
It completely changed my life.
Wow. That's amazing, because at 17 that's kind of an age that is like a little pivotal point. We're about to become, adults.
Right.
And to find a story like that, and then the fact that you'd been writing before, that you must have grew wings on that story.
Absolutely, because I'm like, first of all, I know all these people. These are my aunties. These are my uncles.
Your aunties.
I know this story.
Yeah.
And it just opened me up, and she gave me permission. I was like, oh, I can write this story. It's okay to write this story. And then the sister went on to win the Pulitzer. I was like, I know. I can totally do this.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, in the story, I would say superstition and gossip.
Yeah.
That's that little thread that runs through just a little fine thread runs right through there. I liked that in the story. And can you tell people who haven't, people that are watching who haven't read the book yet, how those two things help shape Sugar and make it the interesting story that it is?
Well, I mean, I grew up in a family rife with superstitions. Like, you don't put your hat on the bed.
Yeah.
You don't put your pocketbook on the floor.
No, I
You
know, I know
don't
that.
split the pole. You know, all these
Yeah.
things. Gossip, absolutely.
Yeah.
More so though, when I was writing Sugar, so I have two lineages from my maternal side from the American South,
Okay.
and then my father, the Caribbean.
Oh,
They're
okay.
one and the same, right?
Yeah.
And so what would tickle me is I'd go to Barbados, and Barbados is a very small island,
Yeah.
so like a small town.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, we get 2 television stations, maybe. And so the only thing for them to do to entertain themselves, besides going out and partying and drinking, was
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, chat and gossip.
That, yeah, gossip.
And my people live right next door to a church. And, you know, they praise the Lord, hallelujah. And, you know, they go in there. And as soon as they would step out of the church, it'd be like, you see the dress she had on? So it always just tickled me. It just tickled me.
Yeah.
So
Because that is a really good part of the story. I mean, it tells you a lot about the people, and it also is the confrontation that Sugar has
right
from the start, and the beginning where you describe Sugar coming into town. The best. You read that and you're just like, oh yeah, we're in for some stuff here.
Yeah.
It's just the best line ever.
I will give you a quick joke. When I bought my house in Bed-Stuy, it was just single woman, had my daughter, and I had a lot of male friends who worked in my house. Electrician, this, that. And so they'd come and go all day. And I was telling my mother, I said, you know, I'm getting kind of weird looks from the neighbors. And my mother said, oh, they probably think you're like Sugar. And I was like, oh, thank you very much.
No, but I was going to also ask you about a house, because that was a part in the book that was very pivotal and important, is the fact that Sugar arrives in Bigelow because she inherits this house.
Yes.
And inheriting a house is almost like a type of freedom or something that is going to take her onto a different road. Can you tell us about that? Because I know you have a story about a house. I remember you saying when you bought your house in Brooklyn and how happy you were about that.
Yeah, I mean, that is when you purchase real estate, it's like opening a door to another level, right? There is a freedom associated with it because you're no longer paying rent. You're paying into something that is yours. And it becomes, it's not just like if you take your house and you make it into a home. It was so painful for me when I sold my house, because I had put so much into it, so much love. And I'm not talking like material things. It's just that the love you pour into it, the energy that other people brought into that home. Yeah. I had to, you know, turn around and leave that behind. So with Sugar, she had just been out in the world doing, you know, what she does. And to be able to come to a place and open a door and step inside, and say, this is mine. This is my home. Yeah. Yeah, it was important.
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, it's written in the way where you can see that it's important, because it's the moment in which it falls in the story is what made it stick out for me. It sticks out, that part where you just say, oh my gosh, she's finally going to find a place maybe where she can feel like she has a home,
like
and
she can plant herself and, you know, and flower and just become who the universe meant her to be, without like the strife and the drama,
the difficulty, and the constant moving, you know, moving between very big cities, arriving, not knowing anyone, and then having to make her way. It was
I'm
So the
very
house was
fascinated by
important.
people who live that way. Like I
Mhm.
know people who live that way.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very
Mhm.
unsettling for me.
It is.
Just traveling back between Brooklyn and
Mm.
New Orleans, that's
Yeah,
very unsettling for me.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask you this. This novel is so colorful and engrossing. Could you see it being made into a TV series, maybe, or a movie? If
Absolutely.
so, who would you see doing playing Sugar?
Um, so early on, and I'm gonna forget the woman's name right now, but she played Max on Living Single. What's her name?
Oh yeah, I don't know what her name is, but I know who you're talking about.
So she was like my ultimate Sugar.
Okay.
But as of late,
Mm-hmm.
her first name is Jodie. I'm not going to remember her last name, but she was in Queen and Slim. What's her name?
Oh, I don't remember her name. Y'all help me out with
Jodie.
the names.
Jodie. I'm terrible. I'm terrible with
But I
names.
know
I
who you're
see her
talking
face,
about.
but she was Queen in Queen and Slim in the movie Queen and Slim, and
Okay.
I was trying to bait her, so I put up a photo of the cover of Sugar,
Yeah.
the one before the newest, and a photo of her.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
tweeted it, and I was like, I think
Come
you're my
on,
Sugar.
Netflix. Come on, Netflix. Bring
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So
No, because it would make a fantastic TV miniseries. I see it as a TV. I don't see it as a film because I think
right,
if they did it as a film, they're going to knock out really important
yeah,
parts. But
yeah.
if it was a TV miniseries, oh, I think it
Well,
would be so good.
maybe it'll happen now. We are going through some things in the literary world and Hollywood, and so I think stories that were previously ignored. I think Hollywood is going to be scrambling
Oh
to
yeah.
to
Well,
get them.
because it's a great story. I mean, it's got everything to make a great story. There's scenes that kind of make you laugh. There's things that just make your heart sink. It's got everything. You're going through the motions.
Right.
This book. Um, I was going to ask you if you would read a little bit from Sugar.
Yes, I will. And it's been a long time, so if I stumble, forgive me. Okay. Okay, you still hear me? My phone's ringing.
Yes, I can still hear
Okay,
you.
great. All right. So this is the
Oh, you got that edition. That's mine.
this is the first edition, and that's the
Yeah.
second one. Okay. Jude was dead on a day when the air held a promise of summer and people laughed aloud, putting aside for a brief moment their condition, color, and where they ranked among humanity. Jude, dangling on the end of childhood and reaching out toward womanhood, should have been giggling with others her age among the sassafras, or dipping her bare feet in Hodges Lake and shivering against the winter chill it still clutched. Instead, she was dead. She'd been taken down by the sharp blade of jealousy, and her womanhood, so soft, pink, and virginal, was sliced from her and laid to rest on the side of the road near her body. Her pigtails, thick, dark ropes of hair, lay splayed out above her head, mixed in with the pine needles and road dust. Her dress, white and yellow, her favorite colors, was pulled up to her neck, revealing the small bosom that had developed over the winter. The murder had white man written all over it. That was only a half-truth, but no one would say it above a whisper. It was 1940. It was Bigelow, Arkansas. It was a black child. Need any more be said? No one cared except the people who carried the same skin color. No one cared except the parents who had nursed her, stayed up all night soothing and rocking her when she was colicky, applauded her when she took her first steps, and cried when the babbling, gurgling sounds that came from her sweet mouth finally formed the words mama and then later papa. They cared. the parents of sweet, sweet Jude, who would never hurt a fly, no less a human being. Look at what they did to her. Word first came via the Edelson boy. He'd run all the way and was breathless when he arrived. Black John, the blacksmith, had found her about a mile down the road and covered her body with a croaker sack while he put himself in the right frame of mind to start coming. He had to pop the boy upside the head twice, this just to get him moving instead of gawking. Black John remained behind, gathering the broken child into his arms and placing her gently in his wagon among the bags of crates of field provisions. He stood looking at the beauty of this almost woman. In life, she was a tall child, strapping like her father, but in death, she seemed so small. Perhaps it was because of her broken bones and the way her skin sank in the places between the breaks that made her look so tiny and uneven. He shook his head in pity and looked up into the heavens for an answer. An arrow of blackbirds blinded the sun and then moved on. If that was clarification of why and what lay ahead, Black John never said, but he would think back on this day again in 15 years' time. His wife had helped birth this child, as she had most of the Bigelow children. She would take it hard, like she'd lost one of her own. He looked back at the child again, and a heavy sigh escaped him. No rest for the weary, he muttered, and then couldn't think of why that would come to mind. He was procrastinating, standing there behind his wagon of potatoes, turnips, cabbage, yam, and Jude. He was stretching the space between his arrival and the scene that would follow, crying eyes and screaming mouths. He'd seen plenty of grief in his life, but grief let loose from a woman who lost a child, that was the worst type of grief of all. If you could, you try to avoid that sort, because grief that comes from a loss of a child just took a piece of you away each time you met up with it. You know?
Yeah. That is such a heart-wrenching, it's heart-wrenching when you're reading that passage. It's just the whole first part of chapter 1, I'm just like I mean, when you have kids, especially daughters, and you read that, oh my God, it just it breaks my heart. You know, when I'm reading it, I'm just thinking, I can understand why poor Pearl left herself in her daughter's coffin practically.
Yeah.
She was broken, you know, she was just never going to be the same person. That's what's so beautiful about the story, though, is that Sugar comes along and can help this woman somehow relive, you know, rebloom. And, you know, and that's the really interesting part, is that happens, but also Pearl helps Sugar do the same. And it's unexpected.
They're bonds for
not what she
each other.
expects.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They're bonds for each other. And I think that, you know, I'm so grateful for the sisterhood that I have with the women in my life. Those are my sisters. They're not just my friends. They're my sisters. Yeah. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to translate those deep feelings that I have onto the page.
Mm-hmm. No, I thought it was very well done, and it's that sisterhood is what comes out in the story. And it's just because it's got all the aspects of sisterhood. As you can have other women that you feel a sisterly bond with, there will be others that you won't,
right?
for many different reasons. And so you manage to show that reality of, you know, sisterhood, which is so true.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about writing.
Okay.
So what's on your nightstand that you're reading at the moment? So what are you reading?
Okay. I am rereading.
Oh, okay.
Volunteer Slavery by Jill Nelson.
Okay.
I am listening to Oh, I'm so bad. I finished listening to The House at Sugar Beach.
How
Um,
was that?
oh my God, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I loved it.
Oh,
I'm gonna pull up because I'm so terrible with names. Um, and so I'm all about trying to get to Liberia
okay.
because that's where it takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that I finished listening to about a week ago. I have a million books on. Oh, I'm reading like 4 or 5 different things. So,
Okay.
the book of the Little Acts, Lauren Francis Sharma, which was just published a few
Yeah,
weeks
I've heard
ago.
about that one. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I reread The Men We Reap by
Uh,
Jesmyn Ward.
yeah.
Um, I am also dabbling in, what do I have up there? Oh, Everything Inside, Edward Stancicott.
Okay. Yeah.
So
All right.
I think that's what I am. Yeah, I'm rotating. I'm rotating
You're
between
rotating
those
those.
stories right now.
So, who would you say are the authors that we as Black women should be reading today? Like, who are the people you're like, "God, you need to be reading her? You're not reading her?
Oh my God, you put me on the spot. Um, oh my goodness, there's so many. It's so difficult because there are so many
There are some good ones.
fabulous writers out here right now. There's a sister. She's only published one book. I'm waiting for the next one. Caitlin Greenwich. Follow her on Twitter. She's phenomenal. She's just so brilliant in her thought, just her tweets. And so I learn a lot. I learn a lot from Caitlin.
Okay.
Ask me another question. Let me
Okay, I'll ask
think
you
of
another.
that.
Okay. What kind of advice would you give to budding Black writers?
Oh, all right. Read, and read.
Okay.
Um,
Check.
that. I think that is the most important thing. That's the top.
Okay.
And right. So when I was starting out, I had no idea that there was anything that there was such a thing as writing workshops, creative writing
Yeah.
workshops. I didn't know any of that, right? And then if I did, I probably thought that's for white folk.
Oh yeah.
Like
Okay.
I'm not going to be
That's not going to be for me. Yeah. Okay.
welcomed into those spaces. So I read like voraciously, and then I'd write, and I learned
Okay.
how to write from reading.
Yeah.
And but because now we have these creative writing workshops that we can actually go to and learn with others to hone the craft. I
Yeah.
encourage it.
Yeah.
What I find disturbing is
Oh, okay.
that we have a lot of aspiring writers who feel like they have to go and get a degree.
Yeah, the MFA. Yeah. 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 They a lot of them, they all have MFA from Iowa, this one, that one.
Yeah.
So,
And so I mean, like I get it because
yeah.
it's not only about learning the craft, but it's more so about getting into the right
Circle.
circles
Yeah.
and attracting the right attention
Absolutely.
from the right folk.
Yeah.
So I get that, and it's like buying a ticket, right? To
Hmm.
to play the game. So that's disturbing for me because I know that there are people who are super duper talented, and I think that some of those folk will put their gift aside
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
If
shame.
they don't have the money, or if
Yeah.
they're not, if they apply for one of these fully funded programs and they're not
Yeah.
accepted, then
Yeah.
you know, mentally they think, well, I'm
Yeah,
not good enough.
it does a number on you. You think, oh my
Yeah,
God, I can't do this
right.
when you can.
Yeah, when you
Mm,
absolutely can. So,
yeah.
yeah, that I just say read and write, read and write,
Mhm,
read and write, read and write.
mm. So how do you, because the big thing at the moment everybody's talking about is how poorly paid Black writers have been for some freaking fantastic
Forever,
novels. I'm just crying.
forever.
Yeah. So as a budding writer that's trying to get published, do you really think it's a bad idea to publish uh independently, or
Self-published.
should they try to get into a mainstream?
I don't ever think it's a bad thing to do your own thing. When I
Okay.
look at these, like some of these rappers out here, they own all their masters. They did it
Yeah, they
independently.
own everything.
What's bad about that? It's this
Yeah.
idea that, you know, we can't do it for ourselves, and we need, you know, these folk
Mhm.
that run the publishing houses to do it for us. No. Now,
Okay.
now, self-publishing used to be stigmatized
Yeah.
because folk weren't getting their manuscripts edited properly,
Hmm.
and they were putting stuff out there. And it might have been a great story. It might have been well written, but grammatically there were issues, and
Issues.
you
Yeah, they
know,
needed good editing.
right? You got to pay for that.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah,
pay for
absolutely
that.
agree with
So
that.
I would
Yeah.
absolutely encourage people to self-publish.
Hmm.
This is
Just get a good
this is
editor.
the time. Just get a good editor.
Hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Okay.
get a great editor.
Okay. Because that's writing right now. It's like you said. I think everything is open, but there are certain things, which is this idea that you have to have a master's, and it has to come from the right university. If it comes from one university, it's everybody looks at it like, oh, you're the darling,
Right. Yeah,
darling.
the gatekeepers would say,
Yeah.
yeah, that's tough. I mean, that's really difficult because again, I'm self-taught. The only reason why I have an MFA is because I wanted to teach and I
Mhm.
needed the credential.
Yeah, to teach. Yeah. Mhm.
But I was just like, this is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's the game.
Yeah. It's something that I think a lot of people who are writing, they think about it all the time, like, do I really need to? I even thought about it.
Hmm.
I was like, maybe I need to go back. It's been a while since I've been in school. Maybe I'm going to go back and get an MFA, or
Right.
so that I can you know justify writing, and maybe write better and write more. And then I started just saying, no, I just need to get down and hone the craft.
That's it.
I need to write.
That's
I don't need
you
an
have to
MFA.
write. Now, some people, I mean, like they really thrive in those environments.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
It's not for everyone. It
Yeah.
was not for me.
Yeah.
I even have friends who they work within writers groups. They write
Absolutely.
together and they share their stories, and I was
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah. No, no,
that's
it's
not
not
for
for me.
me.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting to hear you say that. So that kind of like reassures me. And I'm sure it reassures anybody that's watching that is a budding Black writer, trying to go through the fiery hoops of the publishing world,
Yeah.
which is not always easy. Um, Another thing I was going to ask you, are they planning on doing an audiobook for Sugar?
There it's already an audiobook. I don't know if they're
Okay.
going to do a new one.
A new one or not?
Yeah, but
Yeah, I didn't realize if it was an audiobook or not. I don't think I saw it on Audible, and I was wondering if it had ever been made into an
yes,
audiobook.
actually every single one of my novels, and I'm just looking up to make sure I'm not telling a lie because I'm sure I listened to it. Yes, here it is. Yes, yes. It was narrated by Myra Lucretia Taylor, who is also a fabulous actress.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great, great, great. All right. So, that's, I guess it's because it's about 50 minutes, and I know
Okay.
you said you were having some things to do. So, if you want to end it here, or if you want to take one or two questions
I
from
can take
people.
questions.
Okay, let's you guys, if you want to ask some questions, we have about 10 minutes left. So, fire away if you have any questions. Let's see. Audiobook.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for showing up,
Hi,
guys.
Musical Tati. She cracks me
Yeah, Musical
up.
Tati in the
Hi,
house.
Kay, the
Kay is
reader.
in the house. Yeah, all my people
Oh,
is in the
Diamond
house to see
Literary
you.
World. Hi. Mommy is fine, thank you.
Oh, wait,
I sent her
here.
into her room. Was
Was
Emmett
in
with you?
Yeah,
She wrote
as you wrote Gathering,
Um,
what was the state of your spirit when you birthed that book?
I had been thinking about Emmett Till for as long as I was aware of Emmett Till.
Yeah.
So he was murdered in 1955, and I was born in 1965. And this was just conversation that would have in the family. And, you know, every year, Jet Magazine will publish that photo.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there was no way I could wipe it out of my mind.
No.
When I started Gathering of Waters, I had no idea that Emmett Till was going to be anywhere in this story. I was writing about 3 generations of women.
Wow.
So the women were very vivid. And so I'm writing, and I'm not even, I don't know where the story is yet, right? I know it's in the South, but I'm not real clear.
Yeah.
And so then there was this line that said, you know, the boy came down to Money, Mississippi with his pair of sneakers or something. There's some line.
Yeah.
That was like,
Yeah.
and I said, well, this boy, he could only be Emmett Till.
Exactly.
And he was just very, very vivid, very, very clear.
Okay. Somebody asked in here, why did you feel it was important to keep your rejection letters?
Oh, to remind myself that what I knew was for me was for me.
Absolutely.
And once every other year, I go through all of them. And I read them, and mind you, I had to go through that same sort of ordeal with Glorious.
Oh,
by the way, let me show. This is the 10th anniversary edition of Glorious. So I'm celebrating 2 anniversaries this year. And so when I was shopping Glorious, I received about 25, 30 rejection letters saying, you know, much of the same. There's no audience for this book. This is not the book that's going to, you know, jumpstart Bernice's career. And, you know, it was crazy. But
yeah.
I love proving people wrong.
Yeah. And so I can understand why you would keep the rejection letters, so that you can look back and say, you were wrong. You were wrong.
Yeah.
You were wrong.
Right.
All right. Somebody asked, what was the most difficult of your books to write?
Difficult book to write. I don't, how do you define difficult?
Yeah, I'm not sure I think they might be difficult.
I would say, okay, The Warmest December, because it is really a fictional account of my life.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was difficult. It poured out of me, but it was difficult to write because I wouldn't say it was difficult to write. I would say it was difficult to go on tour with.
Oh.
And not be honest.
Yeah.
About the story. My father was still alive at that time, and I just wanted to protect my family, and I felt like it was a shame of mine, and it wasn't. And so, that was probably that was difficult.
Yeah, well, I can imagine. Yeah, if it's about a little bit about your family, it can always be difficult to go on tour to answer all these questions.
To answer all those questions.
Somebody wrote, "Are you working on something new at the moment?"
I am. I'm working on a memoir.
Oh, memoir.
Yes,
Okay.
memoir.
So, is it going well?
It is. It is. And I
It's going
have been
well?
picking at it on and off for years, but I've been in New York with my mother for like 4 months now.
Yeah.
And I was actually working on two things, working on memoir and working on this novel, and back and forth, back and forth. But being here, all of these memories are coming back and we're having these conversations, and I'm just like, I think this is the story that I want to tell. I want to tell the story of my mother. I want to tell the story of my grandmother, and just, you know, I've been writing about them
Yeah.
for 2 decades, but
Yeah.
under the veil of
Yeah. Of
different
other,
characters. Yeah.
yeah, other characters. Well, I mean, I think that's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal
Yeah.
because I mean, you can't like put it all out there, you know, as you know, as is. You always have to sort of break it down a little bit, and
Yeah.
then when you decide to do a memoir, that's when you can actually really explore things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell the unmitigated truth.
Yeah. Well, let's look at that. Well, does your mother know that you're writing this memoir and that,
Yes.
and how does she feel about that?
She's fine. She's like every day. She's like, do you have any more questions for me today? And I'm like, just don't rush
Okay,
me.
so
Don't push me. I'll.
she's accepted this
Yeah.
memoir thing.
Yeah.
She's
She's
yeah.
fine with
Okay.
it. She's fine.
All right. Let's just see any other questions. Y'all have any more questions? Oh wait, let's see if I missed some up above. I know I asked that one. Most difficult to write. Yeah, the rejection letters. Which book was the easiest for you to write?
Easy, easy, easy. Easy. Oh my God. I don't know. What's an easy book that I just whipped out? I don't know. I think that I think the praise song for the butterflies was fairly easy
Mm-hmm.
for me to write because, you know, the original text I wrote right after I came back from Ghana. So it
Yeah,
was fresh and it was, you know,
fresh. Yeah,
and so the product of the text that you all have now, I just had to go and tighten it up and tweak it in places.
yeah.
And of course I had the sensitivity reader, and that was so important.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that book kind of sailed out of me pretty smoothly.
Pretty smoothly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Tatiana asked, "How's your mom doing?"
Mommy's fine.
Mommy's fine, Tatiana.
Good. She's good. She is. She peeked out for a minute. She's like, and back.
Oh,
She's
we're
good.
alive.
She's, thank you for asking. She is well.
Yeah, that was
just
sweet.
dealing with the craziness. Just dealing with the craziness.
Yeah, and so are you guys, y'all still on a little bit of a lockdown situation?
I took her out last week to a little family gathering. But yeah, we still have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
We're supposed to wear a mask. But I don't, we just walk the neighborhood early.
Yeah.
I don't take her into any supermarkets. She's dying to she's dying to go to Macy's, and I was like, you must be crazy.
Nah.
No.
Now we're not doing Macy's.
We're not doing that. So, yeah, you know, I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen if we're going to have this second wave that they're talking about.
I mean,
here
in France, we're starting to get out of, you know, lockdown. So people are going places. Some people wear masks, some people don't. Normally you should wear your mask.
Right.
When you're going like into the center of town, where you got a lot of people, you should wear your mask.
Yeah.
But people don't. So for the moment, it's green everywhere except for Paris and just around Paris. So where I'm living, it's green, but still, you don't want to take any risk. You got to be careful. You know, you gotta wear your mask, and you know, stay out of, closed in restaurants and bars and
Yeah, I'm like, I can order in food and I can order in wine. I'm good.
absolutely. Oh, you can even order the wine. All
Yes.
right now. Okay. You got the number, you can order in the wine.
Yes,
Okay.
I can order in everything.
All right. Well, then that's all that counts. The main thing is that that you're there and you can provide the help for your mom, and and so you're going back. Are you going back to New Orleans?
Yes, I think I'm going to try to pull out in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
School is reopening August 19th.
Oh, it's August. Okay. Wow. So that's like literally around the corner.
It's literally around the corner. So I've had no vacation really.
Yeah.
I was tempted. I was like, maybe I should go to Jamaica for a week. And I'm like, do you really want to get on a plane? And
you don't want to be on no plane with no COVID, okay?
No, I don't. So I'm just going to go to New Orleans and just hang out in my apartment.
I think that's what you're going to do, huh? Because we don't want you to get COVID now, Bernice. No. Come on now.
And wait for somebody to turn on a sprinkler so I can run up under it and pretend.
Yeah, you can run under the sprinkler.
That's it. Yeah. So August 18th. So probably next few weeks I'll pull out.
Yeah. And so are you teaching first year and second year students or third and fourth year students?
First, second, third, and fourth.
Wow. That's amazing.
And every once in a while, non-traditional students, like grown people. Grown people.
Grown people.
Grown
That is so cool. They have no idea who they have in their midst. They have no idea.
It's fun. It's fulfilling in a way that I did not know it was going to be.
Yeah.
So I'm, and Tulane is a great institution. I don't have any problems. And of course, New Orleans. It's New Orleans.
New Orleans is New Orleans. New Orleans is going to be New Orleans.
That's right.
I think this is going to cut off maybe in another minute or two. It's not telling me, but I see that it's almost 10:59. So we might have like maybe a minute.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Happy Sugarversary 2020.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining. And I'm going to look when you're coming back to New Orleans.
When the COVID is gone, boo. I can't do the COVID,
Well, you stay safe. Yeah. And people, thank you very much. I appreciate all of the support.
I appreciate you doing this. It was a pleasure. I think everybody in the comment section enjoyed it. And, they love you. They love your work. And, keep at it.
Thank you. I'm going to go have a glass of my delivered wine now.
I'm just going to go have a glass of water and then get into bed.
Oh, that's right. It's late. Oh, that's right.
It's 11 p.m. It's 11 p.m.
Sleep well.
I'll try.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.